Shalom. I'm Rabbi Josh Caruso from Anshe Chesed, Fairmount Temple, and I know the whole community of Fairmount Temple sends its love and support to you. We also know that you're here from many different walks of life as part of Ethel's life, but also as part of Ethel's family's life. And I know you know this, but I'm going to lift it up anyway. The family is so grateful that you are here today. Just physically being here, showing up, and helping them grieve, even in this very indirect way, just being here means the world to them. Season is set for everything. A time for every experience under heaven. A time for dancing. A time for wailing. A time for birthing. A time for dying. A time for speaking. A time for silence. A time for seeking. A time for losing. The time of mourning is a complicated time filled with many emotions, both bitter and sweet. We begin our service with the recitation of psalms and prayers, thus linking Ethel's life with the 3,000-year-old tradition of the people of Israel and the eternity of God. I invite you now, if you wish, to join me in the recitation of Psalm 23. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. After a while you learn the subtle difference between holding a hand and chaining a soul. And you learn that love doesn't mean leaning, and that company doesn't always mean security. And you learn that kisses aren't contracts and presents aren't promises. You begin to accept your defeats with your head up and your eyes straight ahead, with the grace of a woman or a man, not the grief of a child. And you learn to build all your roads on today because tomorrow's ground is too uncertain for plans, and futures have a way of falling down in mid-flight. After a while you learn that even sunshine burns if you bask too much. So you plant your own garden, you decorate your own soul, instead of waiting for someone to bring you flowers. And you learn that you really can endure, that you really are strong, that you really have worth. And you learn, and you learn. With every goodbye, you learn. There is a traditional reading during funerals from the book of Proverbs, chapter 31. It talks about an Eshet Chayil, a woman of valor. It says that the woman of valor is a woman who is far beyond rubies, whose husband puts his confidence in her and lacks no good thing. Stanley would agree. She was good to him all the days of her life. The Eshet Chayil, the woman of valor, is one who extends her hand to the needy, opens it for the poor, clothed with strength and splendor, looks to the future cheerfully, and boy, did Ethel look ahead cheerfully, optimistically. Her tongue is guided by kindness, Proverbs says. Indeed, Ethel led with kindness and caring in her words and actions. She oversees the activities of her household and never eats the bread of idleness. Her children come forward today. Warren and Wayne and Stacy, and they bless her. And her husband Stanley praises her. Many women have done superbly, but you, Mom, you, Ethel, you surpass them all. Charm is deceitful, beauty is vain, but a God-revering woman is much to be praised. Extol her for the fruit of her hand, and wherever people gather, her deeds speak her praise. Each week, in synagogue life all around the world, we follow these Torah readings. And this week, from the book of Numbers, we read Ba'alotecha. God instructs the biblical Aaron to light the lamps of the menorah. And these lights were a sign of God's presence in the lives of the Israelites, even in the bleakest of times. As they traveled through the desert, the people of Israel knew when they lit the lamps that a greater force was watching after them. And so today, through the grief and pain of mourning, we know that the lamp of Ethel Wernick is still shining. And the loving power of that light continues to warm us. Ethel, or Nana, spread her light to family and friends. And it seemed like everyone she touched benefited from her wicked sense of humor, her caring, her artistic flair, her cooking, personalized, her love of music, her love of drama, her love of pantomime, her zest for life. Today, she is truly honored and remembered and will be remembered. And now, we'd like to invite a few of her special people in her life. Warren and Claire are going to join us and share some words, and then Daniel will share some music touching on the legacy and the gifts their mother and grandmother brought to them.
Thank you for coming today to remember and celebrate the life of Ethel Wernick, a loving mother, devoted wife, a loving sister, an incredible aunt, a caring cousin, the best Nana ever, and a friend to so many lives she touched. I share with you special memories of my mother on behalf of my sister Stacy and brother Wayne. Our mom took each obstacle in her life with gusto and determination. I described her as a champion fighter. My sister called her Xena Warrior Princess, and my brother never forgot to remind her that she was a true warrior. Over the past year, she fought through 7 major operations, chemotherapy, countless blood transfusions, 9 different hospital stays, and a lot of bad nursing home food. She wore her scars proudly and persevered, not only for herself, but for her family. She had one goal, and that was to go home. Even though she fell short, she displayed a sense of determination and will that very few possess. Even while facing extreme adversity, she kept an upbeat attitude because she enjoyed life so much. Her caregivers were vested in her personal life, and she was vested in theirs. She would often visit with her caregivers when they were off the clock, and they were just there to soothe her with their affection. In her hospital stays, she loved playing cards with her grandchildren and myself. Although she especially enjoyed beating me, playing gin and crazy eights were a welcome distraction for her and reminded her of what it felt like to be back at home. I am very proud of the way that my family has rallied around my mother. My dad, her devoted husband for 63 years, sat at her bedside daily. He was always there to hold her hand and reminisce about the good days. My brother Wayne's cooked special meals for my mom each day, whether or not she was able to eat them. She dreamt about many of his dishes, and he was always there to accommodate her. Just the sound of his voice, whether on the phone or in person, at all hours of the evening, would always soothe her during many anxious times. My children, Daniel and Claire, visited with their Nana each time they were on break from college. They would squeeze her hand, giving her strength and courage to keep the fight going. My wife Gail was a consistent source of pride and comfort, and my mother enjoyed frequent visits from my father-in-law, Bob Schroeder. During these visits, my mom would gain strength and inspiration, reminiscing about Mariana. My sister Stacy, she refused to leave my mother's side throughout her illness. Over the past 9 months, she slept on hospital couches, waiting room chairs, and even the floor if necessary. She only took a 3-day break when she came down with the flu, and that was because she was concerned about getting my mom sick, not for her own health and welfare. There's no doubt that Stacy's unwavering love and dedication, at a minimum, doubled my mom's time with us all. My mom always had a special place in her heart for her older sister Joyce. She looked up to her and was fortunate to have her, as well as all of her nieces and nephews and her great-niece and nephew. She was also recently blessed to have great-great-nephews. These 3 babies brought my mother great joy, and Joyce unselfishly shared these gifts with her. As long as I can remember, every Tuesday my mom played mahjong with her wonderful friends. Actually, Thursday. In fact, the bond was so strong, the ladies traveled to Menora Park in treacherous winter weather to visit for one last game, and I thank you for that. My mom went about her 85 years with dignity and grace and took her can-do attitude into every aspect of life. She was committed to learning how to text and FaceTime her grandchildren as a way of staying in touch, sometimes successful, sometimes not. When she became a realtor, she conducted her business in an honest and forthright manner. She believed in being kind and helping everyone. On numerous occasions, she would spend 100% of her commissions on gifts and groceries for her new friends. That's just the way she was. She owned and operated the Second Story Exchange, a consignment shop for things too good to give away. She genuinely enjoyed talking to her customers, regardless if they made a purchase or not. When my sister started a vegan chocolate company, Ethel went the extra mile to become an expert vegan chocolatier. She worked 12 to 14 hours a day because retirement was not for her. If any of her children or grandchildren ever wanted a special birthday cake, it was done. She learned from her mother how to make a Grandma Stearns cake. This consisted of 3 layers, banana, walnut, and chocolate marble with a chocolate brown cream frosting. Again, there's no doubt in my mind that she could have given the Cake Boss or Duff a run for their money. She was good. For Halloween, everybody got a handmade costume, the most memorable being Daniel's dinosaur costume, which he still wears to this day. She always enjoyed arts and crafts, and we all greatly benefited from her creativity. Her favorite day of the year was April Fool's, and she would play lighthearted pranks on her entire family and anyone else she felt could use a bit of laughter or joy. She truly made everyone feel like they were special and didn't hesitate to let them know how much she cared about them. That is why so many people gravitated towards her. My mom loved people and would make friends anywhere she went. Stacy's told me many stories of losing her in stores only to find her talking to strangers if they were someone she had known for years. She charmed people with ease by simply asking, how are you doing? Recently, while in the hospital, my mother told my sister, I prefer to be positive and make others happy. Moving forward, I know our mom would be delighted if we could all take a bit of her message to heart.
Some of these anecdotes about my Nana have already been mentioned, but that's just because everyone could talk for days about how amazing my Nana was. To start, she was the most selfless person that I've ever known. She taught me that taking the extra effort to be kind in each interaction was the best way to live. She was always there to help others, even at her own expense. Now more than ever, I want to live out this important lesson that she has taught me. My Nana always found unique ways to show everyone around her how much she loved them. For example, when I left for college, my Nana and aunt surprised me at the front of my neighborhood with huge handmade signs wishing me luck on my next adventure. This made me feel so special, and there was no doubt in my mind that she loved me so much. She would do little things to show her love each minute of every day, and for that reason, I know that she will always be with me. Throughout my earlier teenage years, my Nana led by example, teaching me the beauty of being unique. She embraced my artistic side, and she never worried about how other people saw her. She was self-validated. She encouraged me to experiment with art and find my passion. She was a large force behind the development of my creative side. The final thing about my Nana is that she always enjoyed writing poems. To commemorate my Nana, my dad and I have found a poem that we felt was fitting for today. To my dearest darling Nana, who soared so high above, I know today you're with us all and sending all your love. Today we all remember you and bid you one last goodbye, celebrate the life you've had, and maybe have a cry. You'll never be forgotten, Nana. I'll just close my eyes and see your smiling face and feel your love, and you'll be so close to me. You've had such a long life, so many have had less. It was your time, the suffering is in the past. So dear Nana, although you are no longer here, in my heart is where I'll keep you, forever you'll be near. Thank you.
Sorry, I just need to test out this microphone. Actually, I don't think I need it. It's all right. We just literally work. Okay. All right. Clearly, we can plan this out. I thought it would be most fitting to play a song for my grandmother today that she told me was her favorite song. And it's a song from the Muppets movie, which I'm sure most of you are familiar with. It's the one Steve Martin would play with Kermit. And I don't know how to play the banjo. I'm not going to bring out a bunch of puppets, but I'm going to play it on the piano and try to make it something she would have enjoyed. push it easy, microphone. But, thanks, guys.
Well, I was privileged to officiate at the B'nai Mitzvah of both Daniel and Claire a few years ago. And I know Nana's so proud of you and was proud of you and is proud of you. And to see who you've become and the expressive individuals you are. Everything you've told me about Nana seems like you've learned many of the same lessons about appreciating what you have, counting those blessings. She was indeed a special person. In fact, that is how Marcy, Ethel's niece, liked to describe her aunt. The special person for us. She was the special person in our lives. And to Joyce, Ethel was a special and wonderful sister. Both of them grew up, their brother right here in Cleveland Heights, born to Walter and Marion Stearns. Joyce and Ethel were typical sisters, supporting each other and even mixing it up at times, as Joyce had shared with me. Even getting into those physical fights as kids do. I said, Joyce, really, as sisters, you fought each other. She's like, yeah, what do you think sisters do? But all in love, all in support. They had a good life. Both graduated from Heights High. Ethel was musical as a kid and brought that love of music into adulthood too. She met Stanley at Jackie and Eddie's restaurant when his friend Elaine called him over and introduced him to Ethel. Stanley said it was love at first sight. They started to date, and he would even go see Ethel doing her pantomime on stage. They eventually married and kept that flame going for decades and decades. As Stacy put it, the enduring nature of their love was evidenced by Stanley's daily visits to see her at the hospital, at nursing facilities, at the myriad of institutions, and back and forth that Warren referred to. It didn't stop, even with the inconsistency of residency and only being home for 2 weeks out of 8 months. It didn't stop the constancy of that love. Ethel had an enviable optimism that she even maintained through this past year as she moved from that one facility to another. She made her caretakers laugh with silly jokes, and yes, Warren, especially on April Fool's Day. Even when the nurses finished their shifts, they would come down to see her just to say hello. And that was because Ethel always asked about them, their families, their lives. She cared so much about others. She saw herself as a piece of the puzzle of someone else's life, not in a presumptuous or haughty way, but rather in the way that maybe there's a little touch, maybe there's a little gesture I can make to make a difference in this person's life. She demonstrated that caring with sincerity. And even when she talked to employees for a routine visit to Walmart, it became an exercise in relationality. What could I soak up from this interaction? Interactions that we might just assume were transactional. We were already thinking about the next step. Ethel was thinking about that step, that moment. What could that moment and interaction bring. She was a creative force. She took painting classes, baked those special birthday cakes for the kids, personalized her cooking menu for those she loved. She would ask, "What would you like?" Daniel liked chicken parmesan. When he came over, that's what Nana prepared, even though she had already become a vegan. Claire loved the soup Nana made, and that became a staple for her, a recipe that she has adopted and brought with her in her life. And when the kids would come over, when they were little, they immediately retreated to the happy room, a space turned into an art studio. The kids could choose to paint whatever they liked, whenever they liked, wherever they liked. This was not a home where things were untouchable or you couldn't visit that space, but rather it was free for them to roam. The house was basically Nana Day Camp. There were the special shopping sprees for the kids to get them clothing, whatever they needed. You see, Nana understood that people needed to work for a livelihood, but if that was to be, the livelihood wouldn't be for her or Stanley. Primarily, it would be for those she loved. She enjoyed music, and she would sometimes even blast it in the car. Sammy Davis Jr., Tom Jones, Frank Sinatra. She performed with the Heights Singers, had a special love for pantomime. She appreciated also just experiencing theater, seeing it, receiving it, going to Playhouse Square performances with friends to see the touring troops when they visited Cleveland. She was incredibly active in Warren, Wayne, and Stacy's lives when they were kids, and later as they become adults in their own right. You see, even though they grew up and became adults, independent beings, she was always a part of their lives, always encouraging, always loving. And they took that, they knew that she was investing. She had skin in the game. When they were growing up, she remembers their mom participating in the PTA and being the den mother for the Cub Scouts. On Purim at Fairmount Temple, she did the makeup when the kids wanted their faces painted. Fairmount Temple, a special place to her and to her sister Joyce, who was and still is the only female president our temple has had. She was the eternal optimist. Stacy, you called her Mary Sunshine. She carried this attitude into the world beyond family. She would give everyone the benefit of the doubt, refuse to acknowledge news that might be sobering or challenging. In fact, when docs told her she was sick, she put her hands on her ears and began to utter nonsensical words as a child would. She just didn't want to hear it. Sometimes she just didn't like living in a world that was known to be harsh at times. And truth be told, the world needs souls like Ethel. They give us hope. They turn our calloused selves into people who imagine possibility. We may turn our heads or roll our eyes when we meet people who are overly optimistic. But inside, so many of us are grateful for these beings. Give us a chance for hope. See the world of sunshine and light, of possibility. That was Ethel. Even in her professional life in real estate, or yes, the consignment business, or No Way chocolates, No Way, W-H-E-Y, or the vegan candy shop. She invested herself in her clients, the people she served. The relationships were primary. The income, an added bonus. She understood that the strong and destructive forces in the world, within us and without, must be put into context in order to find peace as the storms linger around us. Stacy remembers how her mom liked the serenity prayer. It grounded her. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Well, today, we seek serenity. And we know we cannot change the reality of her death. And we seek and dig for courage to change the things we still can change in this world. And we pray that we have the wisdom to know the difference. We pray that we can carry Ethel with us as a cheerleader, a loving blessing in our lives as we go about our business. These last few weeks have tested Stanley and Warren and Gail and Wayne and Stacy. And yes, her loving extended family, Daniel and Claire, her grandchildren, her dear sister Joyce, Marcy and Fred and Sam and Lynn, Rachel and Ryan, Sam, Chad, and Jake, Ewan, Lucian, and Gray. All of them have stood with her and by her physically, spiritually, loving her and trying to soak every last minute of her life into theirs. And so at this time, we carry her with us, the radiant menorah that will continue to shine bright in our lives. Zichrona livracha. May Ethel's memory forever be a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Let us pause for a moment as we consider the life Ethel led and the gift she brought, and the piece of the puzzle that she brought to our lives. We pause for a moment. If you are able, I invite you now to please rise for the chanting of El Malei Rachamim, the memorial prayer. El Malei Rachamim, Shochein Bamromim, Hamsei Menucha Nechona, תחת כנפי השכינה, במעלות קדושים וטהורים, כזוהר הרקיע מזהירים את נשמת אתל בת חיימן ומרים, שהלכה לעולמה, בגן עדן תהא מנוחתה. אנא בעל הרחמים, הסתיריה, בסתר כנפיך לעולמים, וצרור בצרור החיים את נשמתה, אדוני ונחלתה, ותנוח בשלום על משכבה, ונאמר אמן. El Malei Rachamim, exalted, compassionate God, grant infinite rest in your sheltering presence among the holy and the pure to the soul of Ethel Wernick, who has gone to her eternal home. Merciful One, we ask that our loved one find perfect peace in your eternal embrace. May her soul be bound up in the bond of life. May she rest in peace. And let us say, Amen. As we turn to the conclusion of our service, once again, the family is grateful for you being here. Immediately following the service, we will move to the burial at Mount Olive Cemetery. Following the burial, family will receive friends today, Tuesday, just today, until 9 p.m. at Gale and Warren's residence, 5162 Barrington Court in Solon, 5162 Barrington Court. In lieu of flowers, contributions in Ethel's memory are suggested to the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society and the Cleveland Clinic Foundation and the Hillcrest Hospital nursing staff.